I've seen men try to walk into this village, she said, her breath fogging in the frigid air. None of them stayed. The wind cut through my coat like a blade. Snow whispered against the windows of the council lodge behind her, and I stood there, suitcase in one hand, silence in the other, not knowing if I'd just stepped into a second chance, or my last mistake. I was 59. Alone, not in the poetic way people romanticize, but the kind of alone that comes after burying your wife, burning through friends, and running out of places where your presence meant anything. I came to the Arctic Circle on a research grant, a logistics consultant for a quiet village that didn't appear on most maps. The pitch said, all-female community, self-sustaining, seeking help to stabilize trade, agriculture, and water systems. No mention of how remote it was. No mention of why no men were ever invited before. That first night, I was given a room in the former schoolhouse, now repurposed for guests. The heater barely groaned. The silence was total, no engines, no radio. Just the thick hush of snowfall and the creak of ice shifting beneath ancient timber. I met her the next morning. In the greenhouse her name was Anja. She was maybe 38, but her eyes carried decades, storm gray deepset and watchful. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, just a dark wool coat and gloves patched in places by careful stitches. You're the first man we've let stay, she said, not looking up from the row of frost-resistant tomatoes. They think we need help, that we're fading. I knelt beside her, careful not to disturb the trays. Do you think that too? I asked. She didn't answer, but I saw something pass across her face, not distrust. Not exactly, something like tired hope. We worked together in silence. The greenhouse smelled of soil and condensation. The heater buzzed low. She moved with quiet competence, each motion deliberate, hands sure. I didn't realize how starved I was for that kind of calm presence. When we finished, she wiped her hands and stood. You're not what we expected, she said. Is that good or bad? Too early to tell. She left through the frost-covered door, the scent of rosemary and earth clinging to her. I stood there a moment longer, breathing in warmth. The days fell into rhythm, like pages turning in a quiet book. Anja and I began meeting every morning, first by accident, then by design. I would help with irrigation repairs. She'd bring extra coffee in case I needed it. She taught me how to spot frost rot. I showed her how to patch the cracked polycarbonate panels with melted resin. It wasn't romance, not at first. It was survival with gentleness. The women in the village were watchful, but not unkind. They moved with the fluid coordination of people used to doing everything themselves. There were no children, no young men, no noise except the crunch of snow, the rustle of wind, and the occasional creak of ice-loaded roofs. I learned slowly that this village was formed 2 decades ago. A group of women leaving behind violence, abandonment systems that ignored them. They built this place for safety, for future, but that future was in jeopardy. Fewer women were joining. Some were aging. Their food systems were breaking down, and the absence of children had become a quiet ache. We thought we could do it without men, Anja said one evening, seated beside me near the wood stove. Maybe we still can, but the world keeps shifting. We're not immune to time. There was a silence then. Not heavy, just real. I sipped from the mug she handed me. Birch tea and honey, slightly bitter. You're quiet tonight, she said, just listening. She nodded, then said softly, it's a strange thing, trusting someone again, especially a man. The fire cracked softly. Shadows danced across her face. I don't need your story, she added. Not yet, but I can feel it's heavy. That night, I didn't sleep in the schoolhouse. I stayed up in the greenhouse, fixing the last of the pump system. Her voice lingering in my thoughts. Trust, it's earned in the silences. It was the storm that cracked something open. A sudden wind came in from the north, tearing through the village in a howl. The wind turbine buckled. Snow buried the eastern walkways. Power flickered, then vanished. I ran toward the greenhouse, worried the heater would die, and found Anja already there, soaked through, trying to stabilize the frame. We worked by lantern light. Her hand brushed mine as we lifted the water basin. It lingered, not in passion, but in shared breath, in warmth. Afterward, we dried off in the small bunk room connected to the old generator hut. Her hair was still damp. Her eyes didn't shy away from mine. She sat on the edge of the cot, wrapped in a wool blanket, hands trembling from cold. Or maybe something deeper. I lost a child once, she whispered. The words were soft, fragile. I never told anyone here. It was before I came. A little boy. Stillborn. My breath caught. She continued, staring at the wall. I came here thinking I could forget, but that's not how it works. Silence doesn't erase pain. It just slows it. I sat beside her, said nothing. I don't want to be alone anymore, she added. The blanket slipped slightly from her shoulder. I reached out, not to touch, just to be there. But she leaned into me, her head on my chest. Asterisk in that moment, with wind howling beyond the walls. Everything softened. We didn't kiss. We didn't undress. We just held each other. Asterisk time folded. In asterisk, the storm outside passed. But inside, something had started. Spring doesn't announce itself loudly in the Arctic. It creeps in a thaw in the pipes, a drip from the eaves, a robin's song where silence used to live. Asterisk Anja and I shared mornings, now quiet ones. She'd bake bread. I'd repair fencing. The other women began stopping by more. One by one, they asked questions. About the systems, about my past, about possibility. Some had dreamed of motherhood, long after giving up hope. It started with a discussion, then a vote. 15 women, including Anja, asked me if I would help. Not as a duty. Not a transaction, but an act of trust, of continuation, of shared hope. Asterisk each conversation was deliberate, emotional, human. They told me about their dreams, their losses, their desire to bring life into this world, not just survive it. Asterisk and I agreed. Not as a savior, not as a spectacle, but as a man who had spent his life losing, and suddenly, was being asked to give. Asterisk, it wasn't clinical, it wasn't careless. Every moment was full of intention, care, safety, affection. Asterisk with Anja. It was something more. She told me one morning, over tea and quiet snowfall, I'm pregnant. Asterisk she didn't cry. She smiled, small, tender. Asterisk I never thought I'd say those words again. Asterisk I reached for her hand. Held it. Asterisk I never thought I'd get to hear them again. Asterisk the village changed after that. Children's laughter would, soon, echo between the mountains. Gardens expanded. Warmth spread. Asterisk we painted the greenhouse door pale yellow, the color of hope. Asterisk and every morning, I'd see Anja standing there, mug in hand, soft light in her eyes. Asterisk we didn't need vows. Or, declarations, presence, disquiet, asterisk, love, grown gently like spring after a long white silence.